Hello and welcome to another episode of Taylor Talks Comics. Today we're talking Duck Comics, specifically the Carl Barks library by Fantagraphics, and we're going to go over each book that they've released so far. Stay tuned. And we're back. First, I want to do a quick plug. If you want to shop for comic books and graphic novels, I recommend you do it at organicpricebooks.com. That's just one of the places where you can order some of these books. But if you shop there and you use my discount code Taylor Talks Comics, you'll save $2 off any of your orders. If you use the discount code TTC Ship It Together, they will take any order 4 or more books. They'll take those books, package them together, and you'll save 5% off with that promo code. So $2 off, use Taylor Talks Comics. 5% off with 4 books or more. You want to use TTC, Ship It Together. All right, so this is the Carl Barks Library by Fantagraphics. You saw on the opening image was all 25 volumes that have been released so far. And I just wanted to show them all off. This is a great set of books that Fantagraphics has been putting out. They have been released out of order by volume numbers, but you'll see on the books themselves they don't have volume numbers listed anywhere, which is great for a number of reasons, one of which is that you can buy any one of these books and enjoy it. Like, they're all new reader friendly. These comics were done in an era where picking up a reliable every issue of every series of comics you wanted to was not as reliable, I should say, as it is in the comic book shop. It was, you go to a spinner rack at a local drugstore and you hope that the next issue of Donald Duck or next issue of Uncle Scrooge is there. No guarantee. So with that said, back then comics were made to be one and done stories. You pick one up and you enjoy all the story that is inside. You don't need to be reading them in order necessarily. So that's the same with these books. You can pick up any volume and enjoy it. And you also don't have that weird thing on your shelf of having a random volume 17 or what have you on your shelf. So that's one good thing. Another thing is they're out of order. So they're being released out of order. So you don't have any weird volume numbers on your shelf out of sync. So this is the earliest volume, but this is one of the most recent releases. This is the Maharaja Donald. Sorry, I mispronounced that. And this is technically volume 3 of the series. And if you're wondering how do you know which order these go in, the image that I had to start off the video is the correct order, the correct volume order of all these books. So with your most recent volume, you'll flip to the back and it'll have the volumes listed here, with the latest volume being Cave of Alibaba. That's volume 28. And the one that we're looking at here is volume 4. So we have consecutively volumes 4 through 28, I believe. I think we filled in all the gaps. Let me see. Yes, we filled in all the gaps. So there'll be 3 volumes that come out that take place before these, with comics that Carl Barks did prior to the comics inside this one. And then we'll get future volumes that take place after, or with comics done after Cave of Alibaba. That's there's been kind of some discourse on how many volumes there will be total in the series. I've heard 30, I've heard 35. I think Gary Groth, the publisher of Fantagraphics, when he originally announced that they were doing this set, said that there will be 30-ish when it's all said and done. And so they mapped them out. So take that as you will. So these are awesome volumes. I'm not going to flip through every book. I'm just going to show the covers and stuff, but I want to flip through a couple of volumes to show you what these books entail, because these are true definitive collections. If you're a fan of Carl Barks or curious what all the hubbub is about, these are the best way to collect his comics. They're done on this beautiful matte paper by Fantagraphics. They're all collected in here as strips. These were all obviously in single issues when they were originally released. If the cover was done by Carl Barks, those will be collected in the back. Otherwise, they're just collected in order with the strips in here. But you'll always be able to tell when you're reading a new story, because let me find the ending of this one. All right. They always have like a title above it. So this one says Donald Duck and the Maharaja Donald, and this one says Donald Duck and seals are so smart. So you always know when the next strip starts. And if you're ever confused, there is a great table of contents in the beginning listing all the credits. So all comic stories are written and drawn by Carl Barks in this volume, and you'll see who did the color restoration. I know one of my favorite cartoonists, Rich Tommaso, was doing a lot of the color restoration on some of the earlier volumes, the earlier released volumes, but he didn't do anything on this. And then after all the great comics you're going to get, you will get to the back and there'll be some story notes. And these are some essays written, like this one's by Francesco Stehano. Here's one of the covers that Carl Barks did too. Like I said, they're collected in the back, so you don't miss out on any of the great Carl Barks artwork. But they have like little essays written about each story within the comics. So let's get some behind the scenes about it, or maybe some little anecdotes that they picked up on throughout the years about each story, which is always great. And then you'll even get like this. This was a mail-in order comic strip that you can get. It's called Donald Duck's Atom Bomb, and it was done in this kind of this landscape short strip style. You'll see that this story was reproduced in this book to mimic all the other ones that are still mapped out this way. So the reading experience is not any different. Like I'll show you, that one's on Donald Duck's Atom Bomb. So I think the way it worked, which if there's any Carl Barks experts watching this video, feel free to correct me. I'm not here to claim I'm a Carl Barks expert by any means. But I think it was done like where that would be a page and you'd flip it and that would be the next page. And they were done in strips like that when you got it into this mail order comic. So that's in there. So you get a little bit of historical context with that. Here's what the covers look like, which I'd love to own a copy of that. I wonder if it's super expensive. Probably is. And then in the back you get essays about his career, which is also great because Carl Barks was this magnificent cartoonist and one of the legendary cartoonists, one of the greatest of all time. So throughout this entire series, like I said, we have 25 books so far. You'll get his entire biography when this is all said and done of all the things that you could possibly want to know about Carl Barks that will be volume. Here. The contributors listed on here are the people that have worked on this book. And then you also get this, which is great, the little annotation of where these stories first appeared. So each story is listed, and they'll tell you which issue they were found in. So if you're trying to hunt down the single issue that these were found in, here you go. You can find that out as well. And then, like I said, you get the order of all the Carl Barks library on that thing, or on that top of the page. And then you get some more of the Disney Masters and Disney Afternoon Adventures, all of the other Disney-related comics related to Carl Barks. Or not just, sorry, related to the Disney characters that Fantagraphics publishes. The Carl Barks ones are just in this library. So that's the earliest volume we have, is this one. And then up next, we are going to get to Christmas on Bear Mountain, which I think might have been the first volume they released. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll also notice too that there was a change on the logo. So Fantagraphics a couple years ago came out and said like this is their official logo, because they would change what their logos looked like on the spines of books based on design. But this is their official logo that's going on all of their books. So they changed it. So some of these later volumes that are being released will have the new logo, or even later printings, which you'll see some of which I have. So if you see like this logo, that's the earlier printing. If you see this logo, it's either a newer book or a newer printing. So it is a little, it's a bigger change than most as far as the design goes, but what can you do? This is Christmas on Bear Mountain. This is volume 5 here. You'll see the back cover here. Then we have The Old Castle Secret is the next volume. Really, really great covers. I love the designs of these. These were the design for these books was done by Jacob Covey, who is no longer with Fantagraphics, unfortunately. I think he went to go work with Magic the Gathering. But I always love his book design. Lost in the Andes. But these comics are absolutely great. They're true all ages comics, which I always want to impress upon people, that when someone says all ages comics, that does not mean for kids. It truly means that people of all ages can enjoy them. So absolutely kids can enjoy them, but also I get a lot of enjoyment out of them as an adult. But what makes these special is that Carl Barks was the good duck artist. And what people mean when they say that is that back when these were being printed in those single issues, Disney, like a lot of comic book publishers, but they didn't credit their artists and writers much at all. I don't think there was any names in any of those credits for these stories. But over the years, there was a kind of a groundswell of people noticing that the artwork in some of the stories within the single issues was better than others. So, but they didn't know what the gentleman's name was. They just were able to match the art style with throughout the different stories. And so he became known as the good duck artist. And then over time, luckily, before Carl Barks passed away, people were able to celebrate him and know his name and attach his name to these stories. So that's kind of the good news. Unfortunately, sometimes when the artists and went on to go uncredited throughout their careers, they're not even able to be celebrated while they're still with us. This one has a blurb by George Lucas, and that's an important note. This is also the first one that's titled Uncle Scrooge. You'll see that all the earlier volumes are titled Donald Duck, and then throughout, if you saw the picture that's kicked off the video, you'll see some of them are titled Donald Duck, some are titled Uncle Scrooge. That's because Uncle Scrooge was created by Carl Barks. That was a true creation by him, with a lot of the lore of all these stories and a lot of the other characters. But Uncle Scrooge was probably the biggest creation, because he did not create Donald Duck. But Uncle Scrooge starts to get his own series, and then I think any of the volumes that populate most of his strips, or most of his comic book issues or whatever, are titled Uncle Scrooge. So you do kind of that mismatch. I think because you can read these out in order, if you want to put them on your shelf as all the Donald Duck together and all the Uncle Scrooge, I've thought about doing that as well. Or if you want to keep them in order. The Uncle Scrooge ones do have a little Scrooge, the famous dime on the spine as well there, which is kind of cool. There's the back of here. So yeah, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg have cited Carl Barks as a major inspiration for them. And even to the point where Indiana Jones, the first Indiana Jones movie with the rolling boulder and the replacing with the bag of sand on the where the treasure is, I forget, sorry, what it is. Like, those scenes were even taken out of Carl Barks' stories, which is really magnificent and pretty impressive. So yes, even Spielberg and George Lucas were inspired by these stories. This one is Trick or Treat. This one I always have on display for Halloween decorations. But there is a animated special that takes a lot of inspiration from this story. It's not a direct adaptation. I think this story includes more story bits and story notes than the animated version does. I'm not sure if Carl Barks worked on that special or not, or if it was just based on his stories. But I do know that Carl Barks got his start with Disney working on their animation. He was an in-betweener, where he was not responsible for drawing the character designs and whatnot. He was in charge of drawing the in-between animated stages. So one artist would draw like the still image, he would draw the in-between actions, and then the other artist would draw the finish, I guess. So he would do all the boring stuff. And then I think it was due to some health concerns within the process of doing that Carl Barks then eventually went on to become a comic book artist, and Disney, they liked his work, so they took him on and they brought him in to do these comics. This is the next volume, Secret of Hondorica. So you can see by these covers, I hope, that these are incredible adventure strips. That's what I think a lot of people misconstrue too when I tell them that I love these Duck comics, that they think they're kind of just jokey, hokey Disney comics, when really there's like this incredible adventure story being told throughout this, with the great characters of Donald Duck, Uncle Scrooge, and then Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And yes, if you're a fan of DuckTales, which was a great Saturday morning cartoon back in the 80s, and also they even had a newer version that came out recently. Both great cartoons. If you're a fan of either of those, you'll be a big fan of these comics, because I personally think these comics are way better than the cartoons. Even though I do love those cartoons, I do have a nostalgic feeling with those cartoons. I grew up on the original DuckTales, and then I watched the newer one with my son. So, and then now I've subsequently started reading these books with my son, which is awesome. So you get to share in the hobby of the good ducks. If you're a fan of Don Rosa, Don Rosa is the Kentucky gentleman that there's also 10 volumes of his books released from Fantagraphics. These are smaller in trim size. These ones are. Don Rosa's are a little bit bigger. If you're a fan of Don Rosa, though, Don Rosa is a huge Carl Barks fan himself, and all of his stories only take from the lore of Carl Barks. So you'll notice that a lot of the catalog, the Disney catalog that Fantagraphics has published, they'll have a lot of European artists in their Disney Masters line that worked on similar characters, and they'll do things like take them into space or take them into other dimensions, the future, that kind of thing. All of that stuff was Don Rosa does not consider to be canon for these characters. So all the Don Rosa stories are taken only from the canon of what we see in the Carl Barks stories, which is really kind of incredible, that he has that sort of restraint and love for the original Carl Barks stories. So then Fantagraphics, since they've released all the Carl Barks stuff, or they will, they have released all of the Don Rosa stories. You can read these as kind of a companion to those. And what I recommend if you want to dive into buying these, I just pick up a volume. Just pick up any volume you find and read it, see if you like it. And if you do, and it inspires you to go and read and collect the rest of the series, these are brought back into print pretty frequently. Fantagraphics does a pretty good job of reprinting them. So if you see certain volumes are like outrageously priced on eBay, just be patient and just wait for Fantagraphics to reprint them. What I did when I was collecting them is I just kept finding good deals on them, finding them for like really cheap certain volumes, and I patched them together. And then as I got towards the end, I started buying them at discounted rates that you find on places like Organic Price Books. And this is the volume 28. This is the latest story to be released. But yeah, so you find them at discounted prices, and then you kind of piece the collection together from there. It is a massive collection of stories, but just the cartooning that Carl Barks did was just absolutely magnificent. All of the characters are always moving in every panel. They always have such energy to them. They're never standing still and stiff. The jokes along the way are very clever. I kind of always point out that they have kind of a Seinfeldian aspect to them, which I guess is funny to say since Seinfeld came after the fact. But if you're a fan of Seinfeld, where they'll have like in some of the episodes, especially when Larry David really got going, they'll have like 3 different stories going on, and then by the end of the episode, they'll all tie together for a big punchline. That kind of cleverness, I feel like, is present here in Carl Barks' stories, where he'll plant a seed in the beginning of the strip, and then by the end of the strip, it'll hit you with a big punchline that's just really clever. And these are just like fun, wholesome comics, and you can't get any better than this. They're definitely books you can enjoy for your kids, or books you can buy for nieces and nephews or your grandkids that might enjoy these stories. Anybody that's a big fan of DuckTales or Disney characters in general, you want them to read some great comics that are even better than those cartoons, get your hands on some of these. And they're fairly priced. They're starting to be like $35 a cover price for these, but you can find them, like I said, discounted at different places like Organic Price Books for a little bit cheaper than that. But they're these nice, handsome volumes that kids they'll hold up with a kid, running around with them or reading them or whatnot. And then, like I said, they can be enjoyed by adults, because I absolutely love these stories as well. So that's it. That's the entire Carl Barks library so far. I'm sure I'll have an updated video when we get more volumes in the future. Please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Comment down below. I love talking comics. Let me know what your thoughts are on Carl Barks or your experience with these comics. I'd like to learn more. Like I said, I'm not a Carl Barks expert. Anything I can learn about the man, I would like to learn and talk to people about. And then if you're going to shop for comics, shop at organicpricebooks.com. use my promo code Taylor Talks Comics. You'll save $2 off every order. Or if you're going to buy 4 or more books and you want bigger savings, use TTC Ship It Together, and you'll save 5% off of that order. So thank you guys so much for watching. Keep reading comics, keep buying comics, keep talking comics. Have a great day.